Before we dive into this unbelievable journey, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling us, where in the world are you listening from today? Because trust me, you're going to want to remember where you were when you heard this one. It was just another ordinary morning at the Fallon Naval Air Station. Dust in the air, jets slicing the sky, and boots hitting the ground in perfect rhythm. The base was alive with routine and repetition. Officers barking orders, cadets running drills, and the distant thunder of a Hornet's afterburner warming up. Nothing ever changed, until she walked in. A girl, no more than 23, stepped through the main gate with a backpack slung over one shoulder and dusty sneakers that had seen better days. No salute, no credentials, just a quiet confidence, and eyes that didn't flinch under the scorching Nevada sun. Security stopped her, of course. "Ma'am, this is a restricted zone," one of the guards barked, hand instinctively moving toward his radio. But she wasn't flustered. She handed over a folded piece of paper, an official request for employment, janitorial staff, entry level, nothing glamorous. "I just want to work," she said softly. The guards exchanged looks. It wasn't protocol. Not entirely, but the letter had the right stamps and a signature that made one of them pause. Back in the command office, Maverick, Captain Pete Mitchell, was reviewing flight data. His coffee had gone cold again. He hated mornings like this: paperwork, bureaucracy, meetings with people who'd never touched the sky. That's when the knock came. A lieutenant stepped in. "Sir, there's a civilian applicant asking for janitorial work. Paperwork checks out. Thought you'd want to see this." He handed over the form. Maverick scanned it once, then stopped. His eyes narrowed. The name, it couldn't be. Her name was Emily Warren. It meant nothing to most. But to Maverick, it was a ghost. Because her father, Colonel Jake Hammer Warren, had been one of the Navy's finest aviators. A legend. A pilot who had flown with courage, precision, and a little bit of madness. He had died on a classified mission over hostile territory, and Maverick had been there when it happened. But Jake never talked about family, never mentioned a daughter, and now here she was, asking to mop floors. Still, Maverick said nothing. He approved the paperwork, passed it down the chain, and returned to his data, but his mind was somewhere else. Her first day was uneventful. She moved through hangars with a mop and bucket, headphones in, silent and quick. She didn't speak, unless spoken to. No phone out, no breaks. Some of the younger crew made jokes. "We got ourselves a ninja janitor," one whispered. Others weren't as subtle. "Hey, sweetheart, you sure you're not lost? This isn't the high school science fair." She ignored them, but not everyone was laughing. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez, a grizzled mechanic with grease in his veins and 20 years of service, watched her from across the hangar. Something about her movement caught his eye. She wasn't just cleaning, she was studying. Her eyes lingered on each aircraft's fuselage, every intake valve, every rivet. One afternoon, she paused in front of an FA-18 Super Hornet for nearly 5 minutes. Ramirez approached. "Something interesting about that jet, Miss Warren?" She didn't flinch. "It's running hot. The left turbine, probably a pressure imbalance." He raised an eyebrow. "You know that from looking?" She turned, starting to walk away. "I know it from listening." He watched her disappear behind the hangar doors. Something wasn't adding up. The next day, Maverick found himself in the maintenance hangar, talking with Ramirez. "She knows things," Ramirez said. "She's either got some background in aviation or she's been faking it really well." Maverick nodded but said nothing. The resemblance to her father was undeniable now that he'd seen her in person. Same posture, same focused eyes. That night, he pulled up the classified records, Jake Warren's file, the last will, no mention of a daughter, no guardianship, nothing. But there was a photo, old, grainy, of Jake in a cockpit, smiling. In the background, barely visible, a little girl holding a toy jet. Maverick leaned back in his chair. "She's his," he whispered. 2 weeks in, Emily had become a ghost within the base. Always around, always quiet. She knew where to be and when not to be noticed, but something was shifting. Maverick began watching her, not just out of curiosity, out of something deeper. Responsibility, maybe. Guilt. After all, Jake had saved his life more than once. And then came the accident. A hydraulic valve failed during a simulator run. Nothing lethal, just a jammed console and a minor fire. The safety protocols kicked in. All crew evacuated, but someone had stayed behind to stabilize the pressure system. It was Emily. By the time fire suppression arrived, she had shut down. The system isolated the fault and pulled the injured cadet to safety. When questioned, she simply said, "I was cleaning nearby. I acted on instinct." Maverick wasn't buying it. Not anymore. He called her into his office. She stood in front of him, composed, calm. "You want to tell me who you really are?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Emily Warren. Janitor." "Try." Again, she hesitated just a second. "I'm the daughter of a man who died serving this country. That's all." He studied her. There was pain there, buried deep, and pride, and anger. "I flew with your father," he finally said. "I know," she replied. "Why are you really here?" She looked down. "Because I need to know why he died. And I need to prove I'm not just someone's shadow." Maverick leaned back. For the first time in a long while, he felt that familiar stir, the beginning of something. Not just a mission. A story. If this story has you hooked, don't hold back. Comment below with your favorite Maverick moment, or just say, "I'm with her," to show your support. And don't forget to like and subscribe. This journey's just getting started. Before we unravel the next layer of this mystery, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and let us know in the comments. What do you think Emily is really searching for? Where are you tuning in from today? The night air at Fallon was quieter than usual. Inside the officers' quarters, Maverick stared at the old photo again, now pinned to a corkboard above his desk. The girl with the toy jet. Emily. The past and present were colliding faster than any jet he'd ever flown. He opened Jake Warren's file again. There was something odd. A section redacted, more than usual. Black ink blotted out an entire page marked Post-Op Debrief, Operation Ghost Needle. Maverick had heard whispers of it. A Black Ops mission, off the books. High risk, high casualties. Jake had never returned. Maverick stood and walked to his locker. At the very bottom, wrapped in an old flight suit, was a data drive. Jake had given it to him days before the final mission. "If anything happens to me," he'd said, "this might matter." Maverick had never looked at it. Until now. He plugged it into a secured laptop. It whirred to life. Files loaded, voice logs, mission outlines, flight data, and a single video file, time-stamped 3 days before Jake's last flight. "Pete." Jake's voice crackled from the screen. He looked tired, shaken. "If you're watching this, I didn't make it. There are things I never told you. Things I couldn't. About the mission. About Emily." Maverick leaned in. "She's not just my daughter. She was born during a blackout mission. Her mother died in an extraction gone wrong. Emily grew up in silence, off-grid, protected. But she's, like me, better even. She sees the sky before she hears it." The video cut out. Back on base, Emily was moving through corridors she wasn't supposed to be in. Her janitor badge let her bypass certain gates, but even she knew the risks. She had found a maintenance room connected to the old archives. Inside, dusty crates, reels of film, forgotten files. She worked fast. Her fingers traced the names on each box. Operation Firefang, Project Neptune Vortex, and then Ghost Needle. She pulled the box open. Inside were documents, mission logs, an old Navy SEAL patch burned at the edges, and a sealed envelope marked, "For command eyes only." She opened it. Inside was a handwritten note from her father. "To whoever finds this, the mission was compromised from the start. One of ours was a mole. I have evidence. If I don't make it, my daughter may come looking. If she does, help her, or stay out of her way." Her eyes burned with tears. Her hands trembled. This wasn't just about how he died. This was about who killed him. Maverick found her in the old hangar later that night. "You've been digging," he said. She didn't lie. She handed him the letter. He read it in silence. "I want answers," she said. "And I want justice." Maverick nodded. "Then you'll need training, and allies, and a hell of a lot of discretion." "You're going to help me?" she asked. He looked her in the eye. "Your father saved my life. I owe him more than..." Silence. The next morning, things shifted. Emily was no longer just a janitor. She met Maverick on the tarmac before dawn. He handed her a set of training manuals. "If you're going to fly, you start with the ground," he said. She smiled. "I was born in the sky." He paused, then added, "Then you'll rise fast. But secrets have gravity, and we're going to war with ghosts. If you're all in on this ride, drop a jet emoji in the comments and let us know what you'd do." In Emily's shoes. Smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Because this story is just starting to take off. The Nevada sunrise cracked against the horizon like a slow-moving firestorm. The tarmac buzzed with life as Emily took her first step into a world she was born into but never permitted to touch. Maverick stood beside a decommissioned F-18 Hornet. "This bird doesn't fly anymore," he said, "but it's still got stories to tell. So do you." Emily's hands brushed the fuselage, fingers absorbing the cold metal. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about becoming the woman her father never got to see. For the next several weeks, Maverick drilled her hard. Flight simulators, survival training, technical repair work, even psychological evaluations. Emily excelled, but she wasn't flawless. Her instincts were sharp, but her emotions ran deep. One night, after a grueling endurance test in the desert, she snapped. "I'm not ready," she yelled, collapsing onto the sand. "I can't do this. I'm not him." Maverick knelt beside her. "Good. Because you're not supposed to be. You're you, and that's who they'll never see coming." That night changed everything. The girl who cried in the shadows began to disappear. In her place stood a woman who would fly with the ghosts of her past and land with fire in her soul. She found an old journal of her father's hidden in Maverick's locker. Maverick admitted he had kept it safe all these years, unsure what to do with it. Emily spent nights reading his thoughts, entries filled with fear, hope, guilt, and love. One line struck her like a missile to the chest. "If Emily ever finds the truth, I hope she has someone by her side, someone like Pete." If you're feeling what Emily's feeling, that tight knot of purpose and fire, comment "I fly with her" below and tap that like button. Let's keep flying. One morning, Maverick took Emily out to a private runway. "Time to get off the ground," he said. They flew a two-seater trainer. Maverick piloted it first, Emily observed. Then he gave her control. At 30,000 feet, she hit turbulence. "Hold it," Maverick ordered. "Feel the jet. Don't fight it. Become it." She steadied. The jet obeyed. Back on the ground, she was breathless, shaking. "Did I pass?" Maverick grinned. No one passes their first flight like that. But Emily wasn't interested in praise. She looked to the horizon. "I'm ready for the truth." "Then you better hold on," he said, "because what comes next might take you higher than you ever imagined, or bury you in ways you can't escape." Before we dive into the shadows, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're tuning in from. This part of the mission gets real and dangerous. Stay sharp. Emily couldn't sleep. Her dreams were now filled with code names, hidden messages, and the sharp memory of her father's voice. Every hour of training with Maverick, every line in her father's journal, pushed her deeper into a world she never asked for, but now couldn't escape. The name that kept returning was Coyote. It wasn't a call sign. It was a whisper. A ghost, mentioned only once in the black pages of the Ghost Needle mission files. Maverick didn't like the sound of it. "I flew with a man who used that name," he finally admitted. "Real name's classified. He disappeared after the mission your father died on. Not MIA, not KIA, just gone." Emily stared at him. "You think he's the mole?" "I think if he's alive, he knows who is. They needed help." Quiet help, Maverick. Reached out to an old contact, Commander Sofia Spectre Ramirez, now teaching reconnaissance tactics at a private training facility outside San Diego. A ghost herself. Once part of the same operation, and once very close to Jake Warren, Emily and Maverick met her in a hangar filled with old radar tech and dusty flight manuals. Spectre didn't smile when she saw Maverick. She hugged him like someone who'd buried too many secrets and not enough friends. "This is her?" she asked, motioning to Emily. "She's Jake's legacy," Maverick said. "And she's ready." Spectre sighed. "Then you both better sit down." She laid out files no one was supposed to have. Photos from the Ghost Needle operation, including one taken just hours before it went dark. Emily's father, Spectre, Maverick, and one more man, face blurred by sun glare. Label, Operator 6, Coyote. Spectre slid over a note. 2 weeks after the op, I received this anonymously. It says Coyote made contact with foreign agents, sold mission details for immunity. Emily's voice was cold. "So why is he still out there?" "Because someone high up wanted him out there," Spectre said. "And someone higher up buried the story." They traced a trail of ghost signals, offshore radio bursts, encrypted satellite pulses, all leading to a name: Argus Dynamics, a private aerospace firm contracting with the Navy. It was a cover. Coyote had gone corporate. Inside, Argus was a fortress, but Emily had learned from the best. Spectre forged credentials. Maverick taught her timing. And Emily? She had inherited her father's nerve. Disguised as a junior systems auditor, Emily breached the Argus perimeter. Her hands trembled as she accessed the server logs. She found data packages marked with old op names, not just Ghost Needle, but others. Phantom Canyon, Atlas Drift, names that reeked of cover-ups. Then, a video feed. Coyote, alive, older, still sharp, giving a presentation to a shadowy board about a new generation of pilots. His voice was smooth, calculated, and chillingly calm when he mentioned a name, Emily Warren. "They'll come looking," he said. "Let them. She's just like him, predictable, emotional, easy to bait." Emily felt the breath drain from her lungs. She downloaded the file and left, silent, invisible. Back at Spectre's, they watched it again. Maverick was silent for a long time. "This wasn't just betrayal," he said. "It was a setup." Jake knew. Emily clenched her fists. "Then, I want him to know I'm coming. If you're with Emily now, standing at the edge of truth and vengeance, drop a emoji in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and share this mission with someone who needs to hear the truth isn't always buried. Sometimes it flies." That night, Maverick took Emily out for one last session before what came next. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Yes, I do," she replied. "But I don't have to do it alone." He handed her an old patch, Jake's, the edges frayed, the threads faded. "Then take this," Maverick said. "You'll carry him with you." The next morning, Spectre arranged a covert insertion into an Argus off-site airfield. Emily would go in solo, recover files confirming Coyote's betrayal, and expose the operation. As the plane soared toward the mission site, Emily sat strapped in beside Maverick, who, of course, refused to stay behind. "If there's one thing I learned from your dad," he said, "it's that no one flies alone. Not when it matters." She smiled. "Let's bring down a ghost." Back on base, Spectre received a satellite ping, encrypted. 4 words only. Wheels down, no turning back. The operation was in motion, and the skies about to burn. If your pulse is racing like ours, you're not alone. Comment below with "no turning back" if you're riding with Emily and Maverick to the very end. Hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure you've got notifications on, because in the next chapter, everything explodes. A storm rolled over Fallon that morning, the kind that whispered warnings and stirred buried secrets. Emily stood in Hangar 6, her father's final flight suit draped over her arm. She had found one last encrypted message inside his journal, a set of coordinates. Maverick examined the numbers. "It's not just a location," he said. "It's a vault. An old satellite relay station decommissioned after Ghost Needle. It was never cleared. It might still hold records." Together, they took a Blackhawk under the guise of a training op. Only Warlock and Phoenix knew. The less said, the safer they'd be. The facility was remote, rusted fences, wind-blown dirt, silence louder than engines. Emily approached the mainframe console. With a stolen clearance code and fingers that didn't tremble anymore, she cracked it open. Old data files blinked to life, video logs, one labeled Op Ghost Needle, Final Debrief. They played it, on screen. Was Vice Admiral Ryerson, younger, colder. "The op failed," he said. "Agent Warren tried to expose the leak. He never made it back. File this under Delta Lock. Destroy physical evidence. Compromise risk too high." Emily's breath hitched. Ryerson, Maverick, looked away. "He's not just high command. He was Jake's commanding officer." More files revealed names, flight paths, transfer orders. Ryerson had buried more than a mission. He had buried men. They returned to base under a veil of silence. But Emily wasn't hiding anymore. She took the files straight to Warlock. Warlock didn't blink. "I always knew something was off. But this is treason." "What happens now?" Emily asked. "Now we make it right, but carefully, quietly. Ryerson has allies. This needs to go through the right channels." Emily was burning. "My father deserved more than red tape." Maverick placed a hand on her shoulder. "And he's going to get it. But vengeance without proof is just noise. What you brought back is thunder." Over the next few weeks, a quiet storm brewed in Navy corridors. Investigations launched. Files unsealed. Ryerson was pulled from command, under review. But Emily knew what that meant. They were closing in. The day she received her own call sign, Echo. Maverick stood by her side. "Why Echo?" she asked. "Because ghosts speak through you," Warlock said, "and you answer." The bar at Fallon buzzed that night. Phoenix raised her glass. To Echo, to justice, to flying with ghosts. Emily smiled for the first time without weight. The past had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled her. Maverick leaned against the bar, watching her from a distance. She walked over. "Thanks for not stopping me," she said. "I'd never stop a pilot mid-flight," he replied. She raised her glass. "To my father." "To your future," Maverick answered. "If this journey moved you, if you flew with Emily through fear, fire, and truth, hit that like button. Share this story. Comment with where you watched from and subscribe. Because in Danger Zone, the ghosts always fly again.